Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and you probably know my story. I'm a recovering political hack and a recovering lawyer. I spent years working in politics, including as a speechwriter with stints working in the Clinton White House for a California governor. Also spent years practicing law in Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area. And 10 years ago, I discovered the medium of podcasting, and I've been doing it ever since. I get to talk to smart people like my guest here today. And over 10 years, I've talked with so many different great CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of different companies. And today I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses with the strategy and production they need to create a podcast and content marketing that produces tremendous ROI and connects them with their ideal prospects and referral partners. And before I introduce today's guest, I want to give a big shout out to Fran Biederman-Gross of Advantages. Check them out at advantages.net because she introduced me to today's guest, who is Dave Kerpen. He's a serial entrepreneur, New York Times bestselling author, and global keynote speaker. He's the founder and chairman of Likeable Local, a social media software company that serves thousands of small businesses, and the chairman and co-founder of Likeable Media, an award-winning social media and word-of-mouth marketing agency for big brands. He's also CEO of Apprentice, which connects entrepreneurs and the best and the brightest college students to those entrepreneurs to help them to grow their businesses. And also Remembering.live, which creates virtual memorial services, weddings, and office parties. His newest book is The Art of the People, 11 Simple People Skills that will get you everything you want. That's out now. And he's also the president currently of the EO New York chapter. EO is an organization I love, which I've been active in as well. So first, before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, which helps B2B businesses get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. You're listening to a podcast right now, so you should have one as well. If you don't have one, you absolutely need one. I think everyone should benefit from them. So if you want to learn more, go to rise25media.com. All right, Dave. So I'm so excited to talk to you because I've known of your work for quite some time and followed your work. And I know that you are an entrepreneur who started multiple different companies. But take me back to either your childhood or your youth. When was it that you decided that I am an entrepreneur? I'm going to start companies. One day I'm going to have a little mini empire that I run.
Sure. First of all, I love how fast you talk. You could definitely be a New Yorker with how fast. Kudos, and thanks for having me. And I think I've always been entrepreneurial, but I had a pretty late start, relatively speaking, when I became technically an entrepreneur. While I was in college, I was a ballpark vendor, and that's actually a very entrepreneurial activity because you're only paid based on how much you sell and tips. And so that's really where I first sort of fell in love with creating my own destiny through entrepreneurship. I went from selling the worst selling product in the building because I was the lowest person on the seniority list to turning the Crunch and Munch guy into a thing in Boston. And I was making about $1,000 a night at my peak at the Boston Garden in Fenway Park selling Crunch and Munch while I was in school. That was probably the start. And then a couple of years later, when I got married to my wife, we got married at a baseball stadium and created a sponsored wedding promotion called Our Field of Dreams. We sold $100,000 in sponsorships to 1-800-Flowers.com, who sponsored our flowers, and Smirnoff sponsored our alcohol, and Entenmann's, who sponsored our desserts, and so on and so forth. And really after the wedding, which was such a great success, we realized, like, hey, we could do this for other companies. We could create buzz and do the marketing thing. And that's where we started our first company. And I guess I officially became an entrepreneur. That was now it was 2006. So it was a solid 14 years ago, but I was already at the ripe old age of 30.
So many wives would say, if you approach them, and maybe it was your wife's idea, I don't know, but if you approach them and say, hey, let's have sponsors for our wedding, they'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? So was that motivated by you just wanted a way to pay for your wedding? What motivated that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was her idea.
There you go.
I'm a huge baseball fan, and she knew I would love the idea, I'm sure, but it was definitely her idea. And she had been married before. She had had a traditional New York wedding and spent a ton of her parents' money that led to a divorce. So she didn't want to spend the money again. And we didn't have it anyway, even and her parents weren't about to pay for another one. And but she knew that I wanted a huge wedding. I wanted to be able to invite everyone I ever knew. I'm sort of a larger than life type person. That's why I love social media. I did some reality TV. The whole, I'm always like wanting to do things pretty big. So she knew that, and we figured we both had a sales and marketing background, had relationships with some brands, and so I think she just thought of the idea, and we knew right away, like, wow, this is a sick idea, but then you still have to kind of sell it in. So we pitched the Brooklyn Cyclones, the minor league affiliate of the Mets. And he said to us, he goes, this is the craziest idea I think I've ever heard, but I think there's something about you guys. I think you can pull this thing off. And we said, sure we can. And we did. So the rest is history.
That's impressive. So I know that you are a big people person. Me too, as well. I love, meeting new people, hearing their stories. And you credit people with your ability to run multiple businesses and be successful. So let's dive into that a little bit deeper, especially since that is the topic of your most recent book. So does that come naturally to you, or is this a skill that you developed over time? Did you have some big learning points along the way? How have you, what's the secret sauce behind getting, other business partners, other team members to help you on this journey of building up the businesses that you have?
Yeah, so I think some things come naturally and some things come less naturally. For instance, I'm blessed by being at the complete end of the extroversion scale. I don't think you'll find a bigger extrovert than I, which is actually very socially. It's rewarded in this world, and I feel for introverts out there. It's harder to be introverted and build a business, build a brand, all that stuff. It's just harder. Some things I'm not naturally good at, like listening. So I've done a ton of work on myself, and I write a lot about listening. I think listening is a skill that we all think we're pretty good at, but we're really not. We mostly suck at listening, and most of us listen to reply instead of listening to understand. And there's a huge difference. And so when we listen to understand, when we actually get really good at that, and get good at some of the skills that I've learned in EO, like mirroring and validating and experience sharing, versus listening to reply and give advice. That's the sort of worst thing that we can do. When we get good at the listening and the mirroring and the validating, we can influence almost anyone to do what we want, because we listen to them, and they found somebody that's actually listening to them, which most people don't do. So when we do it well, people will respond. People do respond, and they'll end up, running through a wall for you because they care about you, because you've demonstrated that you care enough about them to actually listen and hear them.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one more skill that has been developed over time is gratitude. So I another thing I read a lot about is like authentic gratitude and acts of kindness as a mood enhancer. And so when I'm not in a good frame of mind, I channel gratitude and acts of kindness in order to get to a good place where I can then be influential in a positive way to my teams and customers and the world. And it's just this amazing, amazing hack. When we are grateful, we put ourselves in. Gratitude is ultimately, and it's a weird thing to say, but gratitude and acts of kindness are actually very, very selfish, arguably, because of the amazing mindset that they put us in, which allow us to be productive and successful. So I'm a very, very big fan of those skills, and have worked very hard to develop those skills.
Couldn't agree more. One of the topics you write about in the book is connecting with people. So talk a little bit about that, some of your strategies for connecting with clients, referral partners, strategic partners, influencers, people that you want to connect with.
Yeah, I think it's about finding shared things in common, and the thing is, we're all different, but we're all much, much more similar than we are different. And so when we can find real points of commonality with someone, that goes a very, very long way towards establishing connection, and then asking better questions. So most of us meet somebody and we ask, where are you from? What's the weather like there? what's the COVID rate?
I was going to say, what's your COVID infection rate like?
But
Question for this year.
like when we ask questions like, what are you most excited about right now in your life? What are you most excited about right now in your career and your business? Or what charities do you care the most about and why? What would you be doing right now if you had, $1 billion? Like when we ask these deeper, more interesting questions, we actually open up, again, a chance for somebody to talk with somebody else on the other side listening to things that are really meaningful, much more meaningful than what's the weather like. And I think that can establish very strong connections very quickly. Asking better questions.
Those are great questions. Yeah. What about you have 4 businesses now? How do you manage 4 separate businesses?
Well, it's really about finding great. So the goal of any CEO, I learned this from Jim Collins through Vern Harnish, a couple of really great authors and mentor. Vern's a mentor. There you go. Vern's a great friend.
Holding up the book. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I like an investor as well. He's wonderful. And what he,
and past guest on the show, by the way.
Fantastic. Yeah. Great to hear. He's a great interview. Yeah. So, what he taught me is CEO's job is 3 things: vision, strategy, hiring the right people in the right seats, and making sure there's enough money in the bank. I can do that for a lot of different companies. The key is not doing all the other stuff. What most people do is that then they try to run operations or sales or marketing or this or that. That's not my job. My job as CEO is to set the vision and strategy, make sure I got some great people that are leaders that can do all the rest of the shit. Part of my language, I guess you can say that we're not on network.
Sure, you're fine. Yeah, that's okay.
And make sure that each company has money in the bank at any given time to make payroll. As long as I'm doing those 3 things, I got to stay the F out of the way of my leaders on doing everything else. And it's that key insight and realization that's allowed me to build 4 businesses at the same time. And I might go 5, 6, 7 because I love it. And it's really, I talk to a ton of small business owners that have a really hard time getting out of the way of themselves and their businesses. And the key is just delegate, hire the people, and get out of town because they do not need you hovering over them. It doesn't do anyone any good.
Talk about remembering.live. I'm imagining that is a new business that developed this year.
Yeah, it's a brand new business. It's a really, on the one hand, a sad story. On the other hand, one of my prouder entrepreneurial visions. My mom passed away in March.
I'm sorry.
Right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I couldn't, she was in Los Angeles. My brother was in Washington, D.C. Another brother was in another area of New York. And we couldn't get together, of course, in person. And so we did a virtual memorial service. I had a Zoom license, and we set up a virtual memorial service for my mom, and it was a wonderful service actually. And we built a little website just because I know
that's
how to
what you
build
do.
websites. Yeah, and so we built a little website to pay tribute to my mom, and it was obviously very, very difficult, but it was actually really meaningful to be able to do a service and connect with my brothers and family and friends around the whole thing. And so afterwards, I thought, oh my God, there's got to be a lot of other people that are going to go through a similar problem to what I just went through. And we can help those people. And so I actually said to my apprentice at the time to connect one of my other businesses, a great, bright young college student that they was working with me. I said, you want to start this business with me? Because I don't have the bandwidth, but I have the idea and I can do, the things that we already talked about for it. And he said yes. And we launched in April, right after a few weeks after my mom's service, and we've already done about 150 memorial services.
Wow.
For grieving families, which has been an amazing experience to help them. If you had asked me when I was a kid if I thought I'd be a virtual funeral home when I grew up, I would have, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, you're completely insane. But it became a thing. And then, like any entrepreneur, I thought, well, how do I continue to sort of figure out how to scale and help others? And we realized that it wasn't just funerals that people were missing out on. And we went into the wedding and bar bat mitzvah virtual business. And then we just got our first corporate client. We're doing a big corporate retirement party. And I realized, oh my goodness, it's October. Every company on the planet has a holiday party budget, but none of them are going to have their offline traditional holiday party. And so we quickly developed the resources and scale to do office holiday parties. So now we're going to do, a whole bunch of virtual office holiday parties. And so, yeah, I love being able to think of an idea and make it happen. And for me, the most meaningful part of this whole thing has been all the amazing feedback we've gotten from folks that we've been able to help during such a difficult time.
We're a little short on time here, so I want to wrap things up in a little bit. But I do want to ask about the other business that you mentioned, because it's a really interesting one, the Apprentice business. So share with us a little bit about the vision behind that and how it works.
Yeah, so another business that really came out of just sort of like real life, I guess. For my first two businesses, Likeable and Likeable Local, both social media businesses, I would hire college students, and they would always do work for me, and then I would often hire them full time after they graduated, and I would be able to mold them and teach them and train them, and then get some really, really great talent. Well, the last one I had. Prior to starting this business, he worked for me for 2 years, and then he came to me and said, Dave, I've done a lot of really valuable work for you. He co-authored the third edition of Likeable Social Media. He helped me with $1 million real estate client, a lot of really valuable work. And he said, and I've learned so much from you. And he said, I feel like you've done this before with other college students from what I hear. We have a model here. I think we should build a business. And I said, you know what? You are totally right. And so Rob went from being my college student assistant to being my business partner on Apprentice. And the idea is we connect entrepreneurs and leaders with college students. We've got, really unbelievably talented college students, Harvard, Brown, Columbia, Cornell, really, really talented students in one of four categories. We have marketing apprentices. We have business development apprentices. We have finance and analytics apprentices. And then we have project management apprentices. So these are folks that, you're getting for a very, very small fraction of the rate that you would get if you were to hire a full-time employee. You're getting somebody very, very bright and skilled that can help you move the needle in your business. So it's probably the business that I'm most excited about because I just think there's a huge group of college students that needs real life experience and mentorship, and there's
now more than ever
entrepreneurs that don't want to spend $100,000 on a super high talented employee, but need the help. And so we're connecting them.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was a White House internship was what started my entire career. But if I think back on it, it was an opportunity like that that you can trace back really everything to. Two last questions. So the first one is, you're a really well-connected guy. I know a lot of people active with EO New York. Who are a few of your, let's say, peers, maybe in EO or others who are doing similar, in your industry, similar type of work, who you look at and who you admire the work that they're doing? You mentioned gratitude earlier, so this is a great way for you to express a little bit of that gratitude.
Sure. Well, I'll give some shout outs to my EO board and forum. Good buddy of mine, Adi Malhotra, started a business that he had an Indian sweets business, and he expanded during the pandemic to do food delivery of Indian meals all throughout the New York area. Love what he did there. Joseph Summer has a promotional product business, and there's a lot of those out there, but he is so smart and driven that he's been able to build a really, really nice brand out of it. And Ben Rosner is a great friend and a great entrepreneur who helps affluent clients with their home technology and home innovation. And he's been able to do some amazing things, both for me and for his clients. So those are just a few of the dozens and dozens that I have great respect for.
Great gratitude there. All right. So wrapping this up, I know you have to go. Let's pretend we're at an awards banquet, much like the Oscars or the Emmys. You're receiving an award for lifetime achievement for everything you've done up until this point. What we all know is, who do you thank? Who are the mentors? Who are the friends? Who are the coaches? Who are the business partners? Who are the mentees that you would acknowledge in your remarks?
Right. So if I had a 2-minute speech, I would spend 60 seconds easily of that 2 minutes on my wife. She really is my business partner, my muse, my partner in all things. I mean, a lot of people say that or whatever, but I'm not sure what to say. I meet with her on a weekly basis to discuss our businesses, and she gives me the best insights. She runs Likeable, our biggest, most successful business, herself as the CEO. She's just an incredibly, we obviously co-parent together 50-50 on the parenting, and she's a really, really special, incredible person. I'm very, very grateful. We have a running joke when I get drunk. I sort of say that I married up like 3 levels or 4 levels or 5 levels, depending on how drunk I am. But the bottom line, I got very, very, very lucky in partnering with Carrie and going through this journey with her. Then I would spend a few more seconds as they played me off after rambling about Carrie. I would talk about Jim McCann, the founder and chairman of 1-800-Flowers.com. He's been a terrific mentor from when he started by sponsoring my wedding to just a tremendous amount that I've learned from him over the years. I'd probably talk about Vern Harnish, the founder of EO, and who's become a great friend and mentor and investor for us. I'd probably talk about EO and my forum mates at EO as well. I've been with my entrepreneurs organization forum for the last 11 years. And when I joined EO, I joined because we had just done our first $1 million in business, and I had no idea how to build a business. What I didn't know was that joining EO would be transformational, not only in my businesses, but in my life. So, started a bunch of businesses since then and made many millions, but much more important, I've written a New York Times bestselling book, and I've lost 60 pounds, and I've run a marathon, and I've become a much, much better father and husband and human being. And I give my EO forum mates and the organization quite a bit of credit in helping me along my way.
That's excellent. All right, Dave, you've got a lot of different online presence, but where do you want to point people to go learn more about you?
Anywhere the word likable finds me, my name finds me. I'm on every social network. Follow me on TikTok. But seriously, all the big ones, LinkedIn and all that stuff. And, my books are available everywhere. And I have free office hours. I coach people every Thursday afternoon. And so you can go to scheduledave.com and chat with me and get some feedback from me on anything you want to talk about as well, anytime.
Very generous of you. All right, Dave, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.